When writing the essay, we're going to start out with an introduction paragraph. Now, this introduction paragraph doesn't really follow the exact same rules that we've been learning about paragraphs throughout the course. So we're going to spend a couple of videos talking about how to write just that introduction paragraph. An introduction has three basic parts. First, we have the hook. The hook is just a method for grabbing the reader's attention. It can also include some background on the topic, and that's what we're going to cover in this video. But second, we also have the thesis statement in the introduction paragraph. The thesis statement is essentially a topic sentence, but it's a topic sentence that works for the entire essay. And then finally, you're going to have what we call the roadmap. And a roadmap is where we're going to describe or list the three supporting points that will become the body paragraphs of our essay. And like I said, in this video, we're just going to cover writing a hook. Now, the hook is how we grab the reader's attention. And we're going to discuss four methods that you can use for grabbing the reader's attention. You just want to pick one for your introduction paragraph, but any of these four will work. For all four of these examples that I'm about to go over, we're going to use the same writing prompt. And the prompt is, should Louisiana distribute condoms in high schools? So the first method for a hook that you can use is what we call a startling statement of fact or a statistic. Now, this one will require a little research on your part. You don't want to just make up a statistic. But if you can find a good statistic that you think is maybe shocking or something most people don't know, something people might find interesting, it can be a good hook. And here's an example. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Louisiana has the 6th highest teen pregnancy rate in the nation. Since our teens are clearly having sex recklessly, let's give them the tools they need to be more responsible. Now, this does two things. It provides some background on the topic, and it possibly shocks the reader. You know, Louisiana has the 6th highest teen pregnancy rate in the nation. If you are a resident of Louisiana or a parent in Louisiana, that number might surprise you. Notice that I referenced my source in that statement. I started out by saying, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Now my reader knows that I didn't just make up that statistic. They know exactly where I found that statistic. Let's look at another method for grabbing your reader's attention. This one might also require a little research if you want to provide a quotation from maybe a famous person, a celebrity, or an authority on the topic. You can also use kind of a well-known saying if you prefer. I found a quotation here about teen pregnancy. Actress Jane Fonda said, "If adolescent pregnancy prevention is to become a priority, then our strategy as advocates must contain two elements, civic engagement and education." Fonda is right, and as part of that education effort, high schools should take the lead by providing the most effective tool in adolescent pregnancy prevention, condoms. So you see how I have used words from the quote and turned it into basically my thesis statement. Using a quotation in your introduction allows you to add someone else's voice to your own, and it can sometimes give a little weight to what you're saying. A third method for grabbing your reader's attention is what we call contrast. Now, we've talked about contrast a couple of times before. When we talked about the compare and contrast rhetorical mode, we said that contrast is when you show the difference between two ideas. So here's an example of contrast as a hook. Being a teenage parent is both easy and a tremendous amount of fun. Juggling the responsibilities of high school with those of being a new parent is a great way to get a jump start on adulthood. No one who became pregnant while still in high school ever came to regret it. If none of this rings true to you, then perhaps we should revisit the idea to distribute condoms in high school. This strategy works because the reader will be surprised and then intrigued by the contrast between the opening idea and the thesis that follows it. It works much in the same way that compare and contrast works. That contrast is what grabs your reader's attention. And there's a fourth and final method you can use as a hook, and this is what we call an anecdote. And it's not an antidote, this is the cure for a poison. An anecdote is a short personal story. A lot of times celebrities use anecdotes on talk shows in order to make a connection with the viewer before they start promoting their latest album or their latest film. So you can also use this method when starting an essay. And here's an example. I became pregnant with my daughter Sky when I was 16 and a junior in high school. I dropped out of high school because I had to get a job to support my baby. All my relationships became strained. I never saw my friends, my boyfriend broke up with me, and my mother was suddenly a full-time babysitter. Now I'm finally in college at 24, and while I love my child, I can't help but think about how much easier this would all be if I had not become a mother so young. Stories are interesting. They appeal to a reader's curiosity. This is a great way to make a personal connection with your reader. When you do that, the reader becomes invested in what you have to say. These stories should be brief and related to the central idea. Now, notice how all four of the methods that we just covered from the very beginning are specific. This is why they're interesting and why they grab your reader's attention. Do not ever start out your essay with a broad, general statement. You're not going to catch your reader's attention that way. I've been saying the whole course, and I hope you've been listening, specific writing is interesting writing. Always start out with an interesting, specific statement. So in the next video, we're going to look at the other two parts of an introduction paragraph, the thesis statement and the roadmap.